So obviously this is the Lumix S5 Mark II. And if you clicked on this video, you're wondering, is the focus any good? And the answer is yes. I guess I don't really need this shirt anymore. Is this false advertising? Can I get a refund? So disclaimer as usual, I do work with Lumix here in Australia. That's how I've got access to this camera. So obviously everything I'm going to be talking about, take that into consideration. Obviously the combination of contrast focus and phase detect, from my experience, it actually is pretty amazing. If you've used Lumix cameras before, you'll know that the focus is always pretty snappy. But the issue has always been the confidence that actually the camera will stay on something when you're recording continuous focus, and that it will actually be able to lock on and hold and track that subject. The advantage of phase detect being that it knows which direction to focus, whereas the contrast system has to use depth by defocus to actually figure out which way to actually focus the lens to keep in focus. So it has the existing amazing contrast focus system now with the added advantage of being hybrid with the phase detect for the extra advantages that brings. So the focus is good. Now, if you stick around, I'll actually talk about my experience shooting with this camera, share some of the other changes they've made to this to make it an incredible hybrid camera, and share some of my pros and cons.
Lumix actually announced the second camera, the S5MK2X, which is a little bit more expensive and coming out late May. It's got a matte-black finish and some pro video features, including RAW via HDMI, USB SSD write support, and some extra codecs, including ProRes and some streaming features. I have a feeling that's going to be a very popular camera.
Now, I did all the standard tests for testing the focus, my face and stuff like that. And if I'm honest, I've never really struggled too much with the contrast focus system. This is being filmed on the GH6, currently just running continuous focus, tracking my face. Now, I've always taken advantage of the sort of Lumix ecosystem. Their phone app's pretty incredible. So if I wanted to hold up and actually, have the camera in focus, if I block my face, of course it's going to grab it. But most of the time, that's not what you're doing. So on my left here, I have the actual phone app. I click on the camera. It'll focus to that point. My face will be out of focus. And then I can put it back down and then just go back, cancel that, and return back to tracking my face again.
It's hard to quantify, but I guess I did feel a bit more confidence that when the camera did grab me, it was actually going to sort of stay on as I moved around. So that was good. But no focus system is perfect. And so I basically came up with an idea to actually run a couple of cameras side by side, just as an example. Now, to be fair, both cameras struggle with this, especially when the helicopter is facing front on. But I'm showing the end here because it's an example when the S5 Mark II outperformed the Sony, but honestly, it was toggling back and forth because it was a pretty difficult shoot with such a low profile object. Now, I'm more of a features guy than a specs guy, but it is a 24 megapixel full frame sensor. It's got over 700 phase detect points. You can do 6K at 10-bit in certain modes. It can do 30 frames a second raw burst shooting, which is amazing. And this is actually enabled because they have included a fan. So it still maintains this weather sealing, and this fan can be customized. You can actually turn it all the way off in stills mode, but it can be set low in video mode. Something I noticed before even reading the specs was the incredible stabilization that's in this camera. It's got heaps of things for video shooters, waveforms, focus transitions, synchro scans, ability to apply LUTs in real time, being able to power and charge via USB-C, all very practical things.
I used the phone app for a bit of a creative shoot. I went out and shot in Sydney just to get a long exposure and actually used the camera trigger actually to fire the camera while I operated a light behind the subject.
The camera is amazing. It performed extremely well in low light because of that stabilization. I used it on some personal projects as well as some professional ones. Unfortunately, some of which I won't be able to show until a later video. So if you want to see those, make sure you're subscribed and let me know in the comments below. Now, I'll do a quick pros and cons after this, but I just want to show a couple of examples of just me typical following someone. And I was really testing the focus here, but I noticed that the stabilization was just incredibly smooth. And here's when I've switched on the stabilization to give it that extra help. So I guess you could say most of the video so far has been pro. Talked about all the video features, the stabilization, talked about the phase detect being added to it, the Lumix interface itself, how the camera operates. It's just a smooth, amazing user experience. Everything is very intuitive. There's a lot of customizations you can turn on and off. So the cons, battery. Obviously the cameras are feature rich and power hungry, but hopefully that can be improved. Also the screen itself, it's not the same screen as the GH6. So especially the standard flip out screen rather than be that new one that sticks out the back. Obviously that's a bit of a disappointment because that screen on the GH6 is amazing. And the last thing is, I'm not sure whether there's any gyro data sort of in the actual files themselves. There's been no announcement around that, so hopefully there is. So I'd say the cons list is actually pretty short.
So thanks for watching. Hopefully you found this video useful. I try to always include as many real world examples as I can. I know you probably came here to hear about the focus, But as a professional photographer and someone who is trying to get into the education of photography, it's really important for me to actually take this out into the real world and put it through its paces, because it's not always about when the situation is going your way. Sometimes there's situations that aren't great for autofocus, and how the camera actually operates in manual focus, magnification options and things you can turn on and off, and how you can customize the camera to your own needs is often more important than the actual automatic functions themselves. And if you like this sort of content, please make sure you're subscribed for future videos, and leave a comment, let me know below if you've got any questions about this particular camera or photography in general. If you want to see more behind the scenes from professional shoots, let me know. Otherwise, thank you very much for watching, and hopefully this was worth your time.